Nearly 60,000 deaths and 1 million confirmed cases. As the coronavirus numbers in the United States rise, so is the criticism for Donald Trump's response to the crisis. The president's bid to constantly fall back on rhetoric, either upon being asked questions or giving out statements, has backfired, and the recent poll figures show that Americans are increasingly losing faith in the president's leadership. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, almost everyone rejected Donald Trump's remark that COVID-19 may be treated by injecting people with bleach or other disinfectants.
The disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute, and is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs, so it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with, but it sounds interesting to me.
The public opinion poll of April 27-28 found that fewer than half of all adults in America, 47%, said they were very or somewhat likely to follow recommendations that Trump makes about the virus. More specifically, 98% of Americans said they would not try to inject themselves with bleach or other disinfectants. With bipartisan response from Democrats and Republicans, that is a near unanimous rejection of the bizarre suggestion that Donald Trump had made, that too at a time of widespread anxiety about the virus. 43% of Americans, however, said they approve of his overall job performance, and the same number also approve of his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Right after Donald Trump made those remarks, medical experts immediately condemned the suggestion, and the makers of disinfectants warned the public against the idea of ingesting them. The president later tried to portray his remarks as sarcasm, but the results are clear. Donald Trump became the self-proclaimed daily spokesman for the nation's coronavirus response, and the numbers show Americans are increasingly losing trust and increasingly not looking at him as a reliable source of information on the crisis. The findings also raise crucial questions about the value of the president's daily briefings, which are little more than televised events that often paint a sunny picture of the nation's response, which many say is in sharp contrast to the grim reality on the ground. While the briefings are the White House's main vehicle for getting information out to the public, they frequently become a tool for the president to lash out at journalists and critics of the administration. Just last week, after drawing criticism over his bleach suggestion, Donald Trump tweeted that he would no longer be conducting daily press conferences on the coronavirus. Joining us on the broadcast this minute is our correspondent Simon Marks, live from Washington, D.C. Hi, Simon. Nearly 60,000 have lost their lives. Millions have lost their jobs. Apart from the numbers, though, Trump's own statements are not helping his cause. And the numbers recently released by that poll showing that Americans are increasingly losing faith in their president on the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's important to underscore that approval rating of 43%. That is the lowest number that Donald Trump has experienced for over 6 months, and it has sunk over the course of the last couple of weeks. A very clear indication White House officials believe that those news briefings actually were not helping Donald Trump at all, despite the fact that the President of the United States was very proud of the ratings that they were getting on television. The fear among many White House insiders is that, in fact, many people watching those briefings took a pretty dim view of the president's behavior during those daily interactions with reporters. And indeed, the Wall Street Journal, on its editorial page several days ago, urged the president either to abandon the briefings or to change his tone. We've seen the numbers, as you know, tick up in a dreadful direction over the course of the last 24 hours. Now more than 1 million confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the United States. Right now, the number of fatalities standing at just over 58,000. Remember that President Trump a couple of weeks ago was still predicting that the ultimate death toll in the United States could be contained to 65,000. He has since revised that up to 70,000. But look, we're almost at 60,000 now. That remains a number that seems completely unattainable. And one wonders why he makes these predictions during the course of his appearances at the White House, given that the pace of events here makes it clear that it's going to be very, very difficult for any of those predictions to be met. He'd be better off not putting a number on it, but simply focusing on what a devastating loss of life this has been for so many American families, and is likely to be, sadly, for so many more.
Right, and over the last few hours, the president has also tried to say that the country has a very high testing rate, takes pride in those numbers, but several officials have already criticized the testing response by America and saying that we need to carry out more tests.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. The way Donald Trump looks at it is to say that the United States, he insists, has carried out more tests than any other country. But that's not entirely statistically true. If you look at the size of the American population and look at the number of tests per capita that the United States has carried out, it is still very much trailing a large number of other countries. There's been dreadful economic data, Molly, published in the last couple of hours. Gross domestic product numbers for the first quarter of the year show that output contracted to negative 4.8% here. And many financial analysts are saying the only way you can bring yourself out of what is now a massive economic slump in the United States is not just by carefully calibrating the reopening, but by making sure that America's testing regimen is in place to triple, perhaps even quadruple the number of tests that are being carried out in the United States. And governors all over the country trying to determine how and when to relax restrictions in their states say the federal government simply is not providing them with the number of test kits that they need and the support that they need on testing. So this issue of testing is not just a potential problem for public health in the United States, it's also a massive problem in terms of the economy and any possible economic recovery that may lie ahead in the third and fourth quarter of the year.
Indeed. Leaving it there for the moment. Simon Marks, thanks very much for joining us with those perspectives and inputs.